plans and decided to go elsewhere. The men Mandali had to take care of all the fluctuating travel arrangements. Mani continued, "We didn't see the men. We didn't know what they did. All the dirty work had to be done at that end. When doing all this sort of thing, changing plans, Baba would suddenly say, see, we go this way, and Germany will go that way. We pull out here, and they will pull out there." That we thought it was such fun. Baba was making it appear humorous, but it happened exactly like that. On January 26th, Baba again asked the women to sign the list of their orders to be obeyed with more zeal until August 1941, commenting, "I'm sure all my outside devotees will do it, but for these 20 days, you must keep your mood at its best. Don't become excited. No moods. Remain smiling always and happy under any circumstances and conditions. This is the greatest help to me. People join in the war, are wounded, suffer hardships, but that is easy. To keep your mood up in every circumstances, to not be upset, to speak gently and lovingly, never use a hard word, not to get excited when someone steals your chapati, but to say from the bottom of your heart, may Baba bless you." That is really difficult. This control of self is more difficult than walking on fire or glass. It is easy to win a war of nations, but it is most difficult to win your own self. It is the only real thing on this path. To keep a calm head, to tolerate and swallow. The Sufis called it zapt. My mother helps me most now. She gives ample opportunity to others to control themselves. You have won the greatest war when you win yourself. When she comes, you will have more opportunity for control. For example, sometimes I do feel like murdering her, yet I embrace her lovingly. You should do the same. They spoke about the journey to Quetta, the luggage and packing. And Baba repeated, 6 of you will die. Then he joked, with Pilamai's daughter, Scylla, we will bury her fan. With Banabai, her snuff box. With Narina, her typewriter. Nadine, her notebook. You will die in pairs. Sunamasi and Kaku, Carmen Masi and Banubai, Norina and Elizabeth, etc. We will go sightseeing and see places on the way. Then in Quetta, no sightseeing. I will stay in seclusion and fast. Do all the things that the avatar has to do. Do your packing by the 20th. When we then when we leave Jaipur for a place where all of you might get kidnapped, buried, or bombed by Russia. Then Baba said, if someone asks you, who is Meher Baba, what would you say? Nadine answered simply, God. Norina replied, the God-man. Baba nodded, not God, but God-man. God-man is more than God. God is absolute, the one who manifests absolutely. The one who manifests the absolute is the God-man. Baba returned to the topic of their travels, saying, this recent 10-day journey, we had some very poor food, gram, chickpeas, everything cooked in inferior oil and added humorously. On our next tour, Kitty will be our God and keep us well fed. God will see to it. Not the God-man. We will have chapatis, omelets, and naan, Persian bread. You will get plenty of naans in Quetta. It is the essential food among the strong Balachis there. The following day, Baba went with Elizabeth in her car to Alwar for further must contacts. They left at 7 a.m. and returned at 1:20 p.m. while the women were meditating. They stopped meditating, of course, when Baba arrived, and he directed their attention to a huge elephant passing by on the road. He gave them a long explanation on the differences between musts, the mad, the musts, and different types of saints on the plains. There are two types of mad. First, the worldly who go mad for money or women, or because of some shock, and so forth. The other are God mad, whose minds are paralyzed, become paralyzed with the others are God man, whose minds become paralyzed on the path. They are like yogis, but become confused and go mad. They are like children. They are mad, ghosts of all in one, and ghosts all in one. They attract others only when necessary. They lie hidden like a jewel in a pile of coal. On 28th January, Baba again left with Elizabeth in her car, along with Gustaji and Chanji, for additional must contacts in Alwar. This time, They did not return till 8 in the evening. Elizabeth said it was a miracle that they were able to return at all that night because the car had gotten stuck in sandy soil. Baba had to walk 2 miles in the sun and contact the must he had come to see, but he was happy about his work, that his work had been completed. About the must tours, Mehera noted, Baba has suffered much physical suffering. Many fasts must work in the summertime. Baba used to go out on the road for must contacts in the sun. You know how hot it is then, not on good roads, but in villages through plowed fields. One gets so tired of walking and walking in the sun, climbing a hill, going into a cave, contacting a must, doing his work, then returning. Then someone might say, another must was somewhere else. Again, Baba would go to contact him. If his car couldn't stop nearby, Baba would walk for a mile or 2 in the hot sun. His feet got sore. Baba's feet were so beautiful, yet for his work he got blisters. On 5 February, Baba left Jaipur, accompanied by some of the men Mandali. In one of his most extensive and exhausting journeys he ever made for must contacts. His itinerary included such major cities as Delhi, Lucknow, Banaras, Calcutta, Madras, and Nagpur, as well as small towns like Ramnad and forests in the open countryside. I like another reader. Eugene, you want to take over?
Okay. When Baba entered Lucknow, there was, coincidentally, a riot. Civil disturbances also occurred at Calcutta and other places he visited. Having traveled the length and breadth of India, covering over 5,000 miles in 2 weeks, and sleeping at night in crowded train compartments, Baba returned to Jaipur. Erich described how on long trips, if Baba could not lay down, he leaned against the sides of the conveyance or stretched out with his feet on their laps. Gustaji, who often accompanied Baba must hunting, always complained and referred to himself as the old horse in the stable, saying that he got less food and more beatings than anybody else. But during the many nights they went without sleep, Gustaji gave the others useful tips on how to keep their eyes open, like soaking them in cold water. Mehera continued on this phase of Baba's working. While doing must work, Baba has given of himself very, very much, all day long walking, and though tired from the hot sun, working hard to make his contacts. He has gone through much hardship for must work. At night, one would want to lie down and rest, but Baba would be traveling in third class compartments, cramped, with everyone on top of each other. You couldn't even put your feet up. So how could you rest? Standing, passengers quarreling, fighting, the stench also, as the Mandali couldn't take a bath. Baba's 47th birthday occurred during this trip, and on that day, he again contacted Palukola Baba, whom he called the king of all musts. Scroll, please, Tina. After returning to Jaipur, Baba issued a statement in which he referred to this meeting and said that as a result, he had decided that his present seclusion system would continue until 15 February 1942, when his world manifestation would come in full expression. He also stated, I have decided to send Narina Machiavelli, Nadine Tolstoy, and Elizabeth Patterson to the USA, and Margaret Krask and Irene Billow to Europe to spread my message there. While Baba was away, Shireen Mai and Jal arrived on 17 February. Other changes also occurred in the ashram's personnel. Fraini's daughters, Meru and Nagu, as well as the Kotwal children, returned to school in Nasik and Secunderabad, and the Jessawalas returned to Bangalore. Katie and Goher's father, Rusipop, had been informed by Baba of their planned trip to Quetta and was asked to find accommodations for them since the family had once lived there. So on 25 February 1941, Baba and the group left Jaipur for Agra and from there to Delhi for a 3-day stopover before proceeding north. Scroll, please, Tina. In Elizabeth's Buick were Baba, Mara, Mani, Khorshid, and Nadja. Gulmai, too, when she was there. The other 28 women followed in the blue bus, with Erich driving and Nilu and Jal next to him in the front seat. Chadi Baba had been taken ahead by train with the rest of the Mandali. In Agra, where they stayed in a rest house, Baba took the women sightseeing to the Taj Mahal and the Agra fort in the evening. Baba also contacted a very high Mastani in Agra who lived in a stable near the Taj Mahal. Scroll, please, Tina. More, bring it right to the top. Okay. The title here is In the Wild. It took 2 weeks to reach Quetta. Their pace was slow for two reasons: the terrible conditions of the road and the old, worn out tires of the blue bus, which were constantly becoming flat. The bus had three flats on their way from Agra to Delhi on the 27th. While in Delhi, Baba took them sightseeing and back to the Qutub Minar, where Baba had Mani tell the story of the mad woman, Mansari, who had gone up to the top alone 2 years before. Afterwards, Shireen Mai turned to Mansari and asked, Mansari, I will give you 1 rupee. Will you go back up? Since Mansari was on silence and also had the order not to gesture, Baba answered for her. Don't give it to her. She will climb up. He added, but Mansari won't keep the rupee. She will give it to me. On his recent must trip to Delhi, Baba had seen Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. And Vishnu wrote to Adi Sr. about the film. Baba is very much pleased over Charlie's acting as Hitler and Colonel Buckshot, Billy Gilbert, as Goring. He is showing this picture to all the ladies in the group. And the sidebar says, Hermann Goring was a German field marshal, commander-in-chief of the German Air Force, and the second most powerful leader of Nazi Germany. So Baba is showing this picture to all the ladies in the group. Baba instructed the Mandali in Meherabad to see it also, and he commented, it is the only film I would have liked to see 7 times. The blue bus had 2 more flats from Delhi to Amritsar, where they waited for 2 hours while another puncture was fixed. Amritsar is the sacred city of the Sikhs, who are followers of the perfect master, Guru Nanak. They arrived in Lahore on 3 March, where Baba at last allowed Erich and Neelu to buy only 1 new tire and 1 new tube for the bus. In Lahore, Baba took 3 of the Western women with him to contact an 18-year-old Mastani who had been living in a squalid shack. Scroll, please, Tina. A squalid shack since she became God intoxicated at the age of 6. From Lahore, they left for Multan on 6 March. After Multan, on the road to Quetta, they would find real danger. Scroll, please, Tina. Tina, please scroll. Wow, Elizabeth's car, that's a cool picture. Scroll upwards a little bit. Let's look at that picture, Nispa. Elizabeth's car being ferried across a river, probably on the way to Jog Falls. And April 1940. Kitty peeking out the back window, Baba holding an umbrella, and Elizabeth probably took the picture. Wow, that's so cool. Putting the bus on a platform over 3 rowboats. Chapter 57, Real Danger. To travel to Quetta, Meher Baba had planned a route that would take them across the Indus River and its 5 tributaries, and through a territory controlled by bandits and brigands, notorious for armed highway robberies. Before setting out from Multan on 7 March 1941, Baba, with great unwillingness, allowed 2 more new tires and tubes to be purchased for the blue bus. Also, he took with him in Elizabeth's car a young local boy, on the pretext that the boy would be given a job at Sarosh Cinema and learn to operate a movie projector. The group got an early start at 2 a.m., headed for Carr, also known as Fort Monroe. But soon conditions turned treacherous. Rain began pounding down. Visibility was limited, and the roads were muddy and slick. They had to cross 6 bridges, creaking and tilting ominously under the weight of the bus, packed to the hilt with more than 30 persons and all their luggage. The last and longest bridge over the Indus River proved the most hazardous, and they had to argue with the toll keeper to even let them cross, since the bridge was not built for such loads. Erich was wearing a bulky overcoat, which made the toll keeper think he must be in the army. Taking advantage of his mistaken impression, Erich suggested that the bus, scroll please, Tina. Taking advantage of his mistaken impression, Erich suggested that the bus was filled with officers' wives and that it would be unwise to refuse them permission to cross. The toll keeper finally agreed, but insisted on walking ahead of the bus as it drove slowly across. With truly heartfelt fervor, the women loudly repeated Baba's name, sweating despite the cold. Erich watched, horrified, in the mirror as the wooden planks of the bridge cracked into pieces and went flying off into the air after they crossed. Margaret recalled, while crossing the Indus, a rainstorm came when the bus was halfway across. We couldn't get out. If the bus overturned, there were only 2 doors. Only one opened properly. No one could swim. Scroll, please, Tina. Nevertheless, due to Baba's Nazar grace, they reached the other side safely. Mani, traveling in Elizabeth's car with Baba, recorded in her diary, We left Multan 7 a.m. The 8 miles of road across the Indus River seemed hopelessly difficult. Went over 5 narrow wooden bridges made up of rows of little boats that groaned and rattled under our weight. The last of these bridges was longer. Where we paid the toll, they said they would not be responsible for our bus of 5 tons going across, as only 2.5 tons were permitted. It seemed to be slightly swaying in the full stream, which rattled its teeth in fury as the loaded bus went across, with shouts of Baba's Jai from all inside. Scroll, please, Tina. We reached Dera Ghazi Khan at 10:30 a.m., raining all through, water knee deep in the road, had petrol for bus, car stuck in the mud, with great difficulty cleared up, unstuck. The locals at Dera Ghazi Khan warned them not to proceed further, since even military vehicles had to have escorts through the rugged terrain of mountainous twists and turns that lay ahead. But on they went. The mountains were so awe-inspiring, Mehera recalled. The bus looked like a matchbox in comparison. It was eerie also. No life, no trees, no people. It was very cold. Scroll, please, Tina. More, more. Perfect. Mani added, scroll up just a sentence. When we were up in the Himalayas, at certain points, the bus just barely made the climbs. A loud and angry noise, um, was the sound of its effort, struggling up the hills and huge, steep valleys. When will it end? We were thinking. Suddenly, Baba turned around and, gesturing at the surrounding countryside, said to me, "You see all these mountain ranges? Father walked all this on foot, looking for me." I'll never forget the expression on Baba's face when he said this, as he remembered Sherry Arji. He said the same thing when we were traveling through the desert in Gujarat. It was rugged and there was a hot wind. Even in a bus, it was horribly uncomfortable. Father walked all this with bare feet, looking for me, Baba said, with a serious expression. We are going in the bus, but Father walked it all. The group reached the Kardak bungalow on top of a hill at 5 p.m. And Mani's diary notes, very high, 5,600 feet, no man's land, our bedding's wet. Mehera also remembered, we only had boiled dal and bread, but that was very welcome as we were hungry. They stayed in Kahar for 3 days and the local Baluchis reminded Irene of Swiss mountaineers. It was raining, everything was wet, but I was happy to be in the mountains. It reminded me of being in the high mountain passes of Switzerland. All our beddings were wet. By the time we got to the dock bungalow, our food had spoiled. So we had only naan and spring onions. I wanted to go outside and walk a little bit. I asked Baba, but he warned, don't you dare go 1 yard from this house. You don't know where you are. You'd be kidnapped. You must stay inside. Margaret related this cryptic conversation from their time at Carr. We came to a forest wet and miserable. There was nothing to do in the gloomy weather. Baba came up to me, smiled, and asked, if I asked you, would you die for me? I replied, Baba, will you give me half an hour to think about it? Scroll, please, Tina. He said yes and went away. I later told him yes, but I didn't like it much. Margaret would find out later what it was all about. On Tuesday, 11 March, the group left Kahar at 7:30 a.m., again traveling through mountain passes on their way to Rockney, 10 miles away, where they would pick up hired military escorts before attempting the next perilous leg of the journey. Mehera described their halt at Rockney. We stopped at some officer's building, maybe a customs house. It was a white earth and straw building, which was cool and all the women were put in one room, while Baba and the Mandali talked with the officials of the place. After some time, we were called to the veranda. There was going to be a horse race right in front on a semicircular sort of track. It was being put on for us. The horses were both large and small, maybe the officers' horses. All stood in a row. The signal was given. It was lovely to see. Everyone was excited. Baba gave a prize of 5 rupees to the winner. Those people were very happy Baba took so much interest in them. They offered to escort our bus to Quetta as it was dangerous. Margaret remembered. Baba came in the bus with Mehera, Elizabeth, and the others. Someone else drove Elizabeth's car, which was unusual. A small open jeep followed our bus. Men with rifles stood in it, a rear guard in case any dacoits came. Muscular, armed Baluchi soldiers also rode shotgun on each side of the car and on top of the bus. We all felt very important with a military escort, Mehera said. Scroll, please, Tina. We all felt very important with a military escort, Mara said, but strange and excited from wondering what might happen. As soon as the bus began moving, Baba said for us to eat. Kitty and Katie had to manage to get food out with the bus moving. What did we have? Naan and onions. That's all. Butter would have been too messy. So here we were, all hungry and chewing on dry naan and onions. We got blisters in our mouths from the hot onions and dry things. Margaret related Riley. Baba pointed out places along the way where terrible things had recently happened. Really enjoying himself, we were following the British mail truck, but lost it as we got stuck halfway through in a river. They had to dig out the bus. We all got down, and finally the bus crossed the sand with help from Elizabeth's Buick pulling it out. The food had run out, and Baba produced one cream biscuit for each. And the sidebar says just 2 days prior, a car carrying 3 men had been stopped by thieves. The men had been murdered and all their belongings stolen. After many hours, they reached Lorelei that evening, where they stayed in a traveler's bungalow. Kitty offered the boy from Multan some food, but he had seen Kitty cooking the meal and rudely replied, "I will not be fed by white-faced pigs." He was a strict Muslim and would not touch the food of an infidel. He was also, as it turned out, the son of the most vicious criminal in the area. Baba had known this and accordingly had selected the boy to accompany them, which was the real reason, despite the military escort, that they had not been attacked en route. Baba was happy to get rid of the troublesome lad, as they were now out of danger, and he sent him back to Multan. Scroll, please, Tina. They left the next morning, 12 March, and were stopped at the Hindu Bog military station, where their names were recorded, before arriving safely in Quetta at 5 that evening. Rusi had rented a comfortable bungalow far outside the city, but just opposite the Persian consulate. The house, though not spacious, had a separate compound with the buildings. Scroll, please, Tina. Tina, please scroll. With the buildings surrounding a courtyard where there was a well in the middle. Across the road was an orchard. Mehera had been to Quetta with Baba in 1924, but there had been severe earthquakes since then. When we had gone to Quetta before, it was so lovely. But when we returned on the blue bus, all the houses had been rebuilt against earthquakes with mud bricks and straw. They stayed in Quetta for almost a month. Unlike their earlier trip, this time there were no outings to nearby orchards or other places. While Baba plunged into must work and remained in seclusion, the women were shut up in the house the whole time. But they did not mind because it was freezing cold when we were there, Mara noted. We had no proper food. We were fasting on one meal a day. We were so cold we slept in our clothes. Irene added, we looked like gypsies with all our layers of clothes. Nergis Kotwal felt sorry for Carmen Masi, who did not have sufficient warm clothing, and told Baba, who joked, Carmen Masi is so fat, she won't feel the cold. He then told someone to give her a shawl. Chari Baba, though not bundled up in a warm coat, was the only one not suffering in the cold. Baba took the women to see him, and Mara remembered. It was so cold, yet he had practically nothing on. He was sitting in the middle of some water on the ground. We were feeling so chilled. Baba said, you are feeling cold, but look at him. You all wear socks and bundle up, but just see in what condition he lives. Soon after they arrived, Pilamai came from Karachi and was allowed to stay for a week. Since no servants were employed in Quetta, the women did all the household chores, including drawing water from the well in their compound, which led to an amusing situation. Kippy drank water from the well, Irene explained, which contained a lot of sulfur. She was passing gas all the time. If you were sleeping on the floor, she came and sat near you. A terrible smell. Although Irene and the others were still on silence, Irene was a talkative person, and she tried not to allow her silence to silence her. She quote unquote talked with the others through notes and gestures, a tedious and time-consuming process. One evening, Irene began describing her different relatives, her grandfather, her great-grandfather. In fact, her entire genealogy in great detail to Mara, who was just inside the door of her room. And the sidebar says, Irene was standing at the door because no one other than the inmates of Mara's room, usually only Mani, were allowed, no one was permitted to enter unless Baba called everybody or for any individual. Irene was making signs while my mouth was full of toothpaste suds, Mara recalled. I was feeling very cold and wanted to finish washing and brushing my teeth. Mani came along, and Mara had an idea of how to leave without offending Irene. Mani, you can read hand signs very well, Mara flattered her. I can't read them quickly. Tell me what Irene is saying.
I think we'll stop there.
Okay, top of 151. I'm going to make a note.
Yes, I'll make a note too. I'm sorry I didn't find it.